trustee and a past trustee of the Children's Fund. So Patty knows a lot about everything, right, Patty?
Oh, yeah, everything.
And what we're going to do, please hold your questions till she finishes, and then feel free to just speak up or raise your hand and we'll recognize you. Ken, if you can do that for me, and then she can answer all your questions. So we're about 1906 or 706 for the Navy. We're ready to start. So you're on, Patty.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Before I do, I want you to know I brought on Dave Schmidt, who's been doing seminars and membership training in our district. I think probably when I joined Kiwanis, but anyway, so this is really his resource here that we're working on. Let me bring it up. And ooh, maybe it'll share properly. Ooh, look at that. Slideshow. I do want to say hello. I know a few people in your district. Almost didn't recognize him. Greg, old CNH member. I should maybe say past. Anyway, so it's really great to be here. Dave and I both our passion for Kiwanis is one thing, but we both focus on membership. We've done lots of things in membership, and I know a lot of you have too. So what we're trying to do is just give a little bit of an overview of what we see in membership and what's happening in many, many clubs all around. And then we're going to give you some ideas. If you do have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat, and Dave and I will both be looking at those questions, and we'll make sure to get it answered. We may know that it's going to come up in a minute, whatever it is that you're curious about right now, or maybe it's not even something we thought about, but we want to make sure we get to those questions. So feel free to put them in the chat. And let's just get started. We're going to do our presentation. I think we have about an hour, but we wanted to leave some time for questions. Have I got that right? Substitute Don, Governor?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Let's go, let's move along. Well, we all experience losing a member, but really, what's the ramifications of that? Give me an answer in the chat if you want, feel free. But really what we do is we lose hands of service, right? And it sets us back on our goals to provide more and more service. We don't always have a choice when we lose those members. Sometimes they lose a job or they change their job and move away. And, you know, some of us just end up passing away. I know we have a rule that before you leave, you should get a new member to replace you, but everyone doesn't live up to that anymore. Service clubs are dying right now, and that could happen to any of our clubs. I don't know if any of you are seeing that in any of your clubs that you're in or your clubs in your district, but I know I'm seeing it. I'm working on a couple of clubs right now to help them, and so is Dave. That goes back to club coaching. This is not the club coaching presentation, but we will talk about club coaching and mention it a couple times in here. And I hope Tony will be feeling better soon, and he may want to hold a club coaching training session. And if you're interested, or you know someone who would be a good club coach, let Governor Tony know, or Governor Don. Nobody expected this, right? Who ever thought we would have a complete shutdown? Now those pictures we see about the people in the 20s with masks, we understand them now, don't we? But our clubs need to address that and go with the flow. Any company that experiences such a dramatic effect to their company, they figure out what the reason is and correct it. And that's what we need to do. I hope you can see this. If you have your pictures on the side, maybe put them on the top or take them away. Oh, look at that. I lost it. Let me go back. Okay, this is really an important slide, is why I said that. And Is your club quick or dead? And here's a good way to look at that really on any club that you're working with. Is your club willing to focus on technology like Zoom? We're all here, so clearly that works for you. But how many of you, raise a hand, how many of you have seen members who you haven't seen because of Zoom? And have anyone seen the effects of no technology in this pandemic on their club? I should ask that right up front. On some clubs, maybe not your own club. But we have to get in there early and start to communicate with our members. And it's not always just the older member that may not want to be on Zoom. One of our youngest members, okay, he's not as young as he used to be, but he just doesn't do it for different reasons, but we're working on that. Dead clubs, they don't follow the trends, what can help us with our clubs. They are resisting it. And this is what I'm afraid of. One of the clubs I'm clearly working with said, okay, yeah, this stuff is all good, but we can do it when the pandemic's over. We can't wait for the pandemic to be over, right? We have to change. And as the saying goes, I'm not even sure who this Von Uch is or how you say it, but anyway, nobody likes to be changed except for a baby with a wet diaper, right? So relevancy. There's a lot of verbiage on a lot of these PowerPoints. The reason being is you could read them all here all by yourself. If you enjoy that, you can check out and do that later. But we want you to know that you're able to get these slides and use them with a club. If you have a club that seems to be struggling, doesn't know what it is, thinks they're alone, you know, use this. But I really want to encourage you to get some people set up to do club coaching.
And Patty, this slide is very important because this is the word for this is today's word for you all, is relevant. And why service clubs are failing now is that they've lost the relevancy to their local community. And so that's what we want you to be thinking of when you're working with clubs is, are they relevant?
And we're going to give you some tools here later. Dave's going to give some good explanation on some tools that a club could just use on their own. It's always better if someone's guiding them to make sure they're doing them and following up using these tools, but we'll talk about it. Every Kiwanis club wants to grow, right? But 2020 was pretty darn challenging with growth and all the pandemic things. And I don't need to go into the details of why. And we keep being hopeful that we're going to go back to normal and that people have been cooped up and they want to get active. I think that's very true. But everyone should recognize that the community still has the needs that they had before the pandemic, and even more so now. And people might be ready to get out and get involved in a different way than they ever have before. So this is actually a good opportunity to work on membership. And I like this one. Dave was talking about somebody he was trying to motivate today by just reminding them, just wherever you are, that's where you are. And this applies directly to clubs. Start from where they are. You may need to take a look at where they are, but to focus on where they are and where they want to go, that could make all the difference in the world. So I'm going to ask Dave to go ahead and show us some resources that are available for everyone.
Okay, Patty, go. Just I'll say, yeah. So here's an interesting quote, and many of you have been in Kiwanis as long as me or Patty or others on the call, but I like this quote here, because this is the other thing that clubs have quit doing in this current age, prior to the pandemic too, is they quit dreaming. And so, you know, a dream is something that's written down with a date, and then it becomes a goal. And then when you break it down to steps, you can plan. And when you plan, that you're taking some action. And then, you know, then when you take the action, something happens. One of the greatest things I saw, or Kiwanis put together a few years ago, many of you may have remembered the video where a gentleman, well, first you see this club and they're looking forlorn, like they what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And one of their guys was driving by a dilapidated playground, and all of a sudden the light went on in his head, and he went back and he explained it to the rest of the club. They got excited. They went hung door hangers on people's doors in the community asking for help. And the next thing you know, the Kiwanis Club revitalized and rebuilt this club, or I mean, playground, excuse me. And it's kind of, it's very close to my heart right now, because my club just finished doing a local playground. And what happened is that the playground was dilapidated and they tore it down. And so we just finished phase 1 of the playground, and now it's a reality. We're working on phase 2. So a dream, keep the clubs, and maybe one of the greatest things the clubs can do is dream. Go ahead, Patty. Next
Well,
slide.
oh, okay, there you go.
I'm sorry, right? That's what I meant. Okay, so I may be talking to the choir, but I want to remind you what some of our dues pays for. And the Achieving Club Excellence tools are excellent devices to help our clubs. Go back to that still, Patty. Go up. Oops. Sorry, yeah, you're too quick. But this is actually a picture of a page that's on the KI website. Now that's the long URL, but what we'll show later, if you haven't been to this site lately, you want to go up in the upper right-hand corner of the homepage and hit Members Resources, and then right there you have a button that comes up that talks about membership, and you can actually go to this page. And what I like about this sheet is if you have a certain problem, you can look at it and it'll give you 2 or 3 possible tools that you can use to make your club more successful. And one of the themes that when Patty was governor of our district, she had was the best show in town. And I really believe that's what our clubs need to be, if they're relevant, is they're the best show in town. And so, and what's interesting about on this landing page is, if you go to the first one, your club is unsure of its purpose in the community, there's 2 tools: creating the purpose, and we'll show you that, and then developing community partnerships. And if you click on either of those blue letters, it takes you right to the tool and you can download it. And what some of you that have been in Kiwanis for a long time remember TAG, and you remember Achieving Club Excellence when it was like a 7-hour seminar all day, where it had everything, every one of these tools in it. And past Governor Roy Talley and I and Patty and her husband, we did a lot of these seminars with these people, and they were all, yeah, this is good, this is good. But the problem was, they went home and they said, oh my gosh, that's too much. And what KI did with input from a lot of people was they put these tools into a bite-sized morsel. So let's just look at some of them. Go ahead, next slide. So thinking about as we move out of a pandemic, and I want to tell you where I got this material, because it's so similar to us. Somebody sent me a link to a podcast for the Chamber of Commerce, some guy who was the head muckety muck of Chamber of Commerce. And he talked about 3 things that they needed to do to make so that their chambers could be successful with this pandemic. And I'm sitting there going, no, this is Kiwanis. So the first one is prioritize and take time to determine a club's mission and then focus on it. So go to the next slide, Patty. We're going to go through these 3 points. So we need to remind our club members what their club's mission is. Next slide. And so we have a couple things that we can use in the tools. Creating the purpose, where the audience is the club members, and what it does, this particular tool, it helps the club remember why they exist. And one of the things I think we forget to ask our membership sometime is, why'd you join Kiwanis? Or maybe the other question you could ask them is, what's your Kiwanis moment? And if they have to
Dave,
think, go
let-
ahead.
Yeah, let me add in here too. What I've seen clubs do, and it's important that we get in there and talk to clubs that have done it, but I've seen clubs move to the Zoom meeting and they spend the whole hour happy and sad dollars. So they're losing their focus. And so this would be the perfect tool for them, but clubs are doing different things.
Yep. And again, that goes back, even going, this tool could also be answering my comment about dreaming with a club. Why, how are we branding our club? How are we, offering something to our community? The other one is a club scorecard. And for those of you who've been in Kiwanis for a while, this is kind of like, a club evaluation. We've had various forms of it, but if a club doesn't take a look at themselves, then they can't realize that they're not relevant. They're, and then what's the old, the saying that if you keep, doing things the same way, expecting new results, that's insanity. And so that's what unfortunately, some of our clubs are doing. Next slide.
I want to say thank you. I think Ken did it, but if you look in the chat, you can take a picture better of the link to where you can reach all these ACE tools. So thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, next slide, Patty. Thanks.
Okay, it doesn't want to go to the next slide. So, okay, there you go.
So with this club's, scorecard, we can diagnose our clubs a little bit. You may be able to see it on your screen depending on how big you have the PowerPoint up, but we look at things like membership, service, visibility, finance, and how the clubs, how are they reacting to that? Is there, one of the things I ask some of the clubs that I'm coaching is, when was the last time your club brought in a new member? That's a real key indicator of the health of the club. And things like, do they go to club leadership at, CLE, whether it's virtual or in person? Do they do any kind of strategic planning with their board, or is it all just reactive each month, just going over the finances? So this is a really good tool to challenge a club. Are you doing service? I'll tell you a personal example. My club that I'm in, a few years ago, we said that we would have service only members. Now they all still pay the same dues. The only difference was they didn't pay for breakfast. And so, because they had to go to work or whatever. But we made some rules with that. If you're going to be a service only member, that you have to do one service project every quarter. And then we started looking at it and we went, oh no, we don't have any service projects. So what are they supposed to do? So we had to, and obviously we reinvented ourselves and created, or, looked for projects to do. Next slide. So again, creating the purpose, dreaming. That's really what this slide is, and it talks about branding the club. So many times our local clubs, because they're not relevant or they're not visible in the local community, they might be doing great service, but they never put their Kiwanis banner or Kiwanis sign up to let people know who's doing this work. Especially if they wear those orange vests, everybody thinks they got a traffic ticket, right? And they're picking up trash. So one of the ways that, the clubs can create their purpose again is do some branding. Next slide. All right, here's two other tools that are part of the ACE tools that I really like. And the first one is measuring member satisfaction. Now, again, this is another one of the rework tools where we ask our members, how are we doing? And it's anonymous, or you can conduct it in an open forum. You guys have membership people in your district, or you have your lieutenant governors, that they could be the facilitators in the local club when they come to do a program. And you could go over one of these tools in a club meeting. Patty had me do the creating your purpose, tool with her club. And we did that in one club meeting to go over some of the things and got them thinking about, what was good about their club and what they needed to change. Rediscovering your community goes back to that word relevant again. It's a tool that it allows us, look at step one there that's shown on the picture is, creating a contact list. So many times local clubs don't even know who to contact in their community. And this is the tool that we used to call a community survey. And if you recall, we used to require clubs to do both a member survey and a community survey every year, or we encouraged them. And many clubs never did it. And so the rediscovering your community has the club ask questions of community leaders to find out what are the unmet needs in the community. So, they're Greg Lander's great uh, comment. Every club should have a A-frame sign. And I wish I had a picture. I had my club meeting this morning, and one of the things that we put out in front of the restaurant every meeting is the A-frame sign. Or we were doing our signature project, which was a fishing derby at a local lake, and we had signage out there. So definitely using the Kiwanis logos and having people see you, wearing Kiwanis bling. I have a very old Kiwanis sweatshirt on, but it may not be the current logo or whatever. I bought it from Kiwanis at an international convention. So anyway, but it's nice and warm. Okay, so branding is important, and that's a great idea, Greg. Thank you. All right, next slide.
Before we go to the next slide, a little more commentary. The rule, I believe, is you can wear those old things with the old logo on, just don't produce anymore, is what I think that they've asked. But, Dave made a point in here when he was talking, and he said that I invited him to come to my club that I joined just this year. It was my original club, but I joined it because they were going to fold because they didn't have a president, and I wasn't going to let that happen. But also, I had Dave come and speak because every one of you in this room, I'm sure, could take all the PowerPoints here and give a nice presentation about it. But if you're giving it to your own club, my question really to you is, do you get anybody who actually wants to hear you keep talking? Or would another person coming in, sharing this information, get better attention from your club? Now, maybe they're all listening to you, and that's great. But consider, again, getting either the club coach or one of the speakers that are available to come speak to you about this.
So the second point as we're moving out of pandemic is to focus. Or I love, if you remember the old Indiana Jones movie where he had to, pick the chalice, and the knight said to him, choose wisely. And many times, again, our clubs are just scatterbrained on what they're doing instead of having a focus. And, one of the things I tell small clubs all the time, and if you're working with a small club, I think it's important to tell them you can't do everything. And because, hey, let's face it, lieutenant governors, Kiwanis International, everybody brings us all kinds of ideas and expects us to do things. But a small club needs to focus and do well what they can do. And if not, then, some of the things that these tools talk about is collaborating with other clubs in their division or in their district, or maybe even collaborating with a club that's not a Kiwanis club. And sometimes people take a deep breath when I say that, but many of our clubs in Kiwanis, partner with Lions and Seroptimus and Rotary and Optimus to do something like a Christmas parade or something. So anyway, choose wisely. Focus is a very important thing for our clubs to do. Next slide.
Sure, it's coming. There it is.
So here, this is another good tool. And we had to do this in my club a few years ago. And it's probably why I put those pancakes on there. For many years, we, like many Kiwanis clubs, were known as the pancake guys, and we have a pancake breakfast every year. And, bring your family, bring whatever. And it just wasn't, people weren't coming out. And so we had to analyze our impact and make a change. So actually, about 20 years ago, I can't believe it's been 20 years since we did pancakes, but we found a partnership with the city to do a fishing derby. And now we've actually gone from one derby a year to two. And we just finished one in December and we made $19,000, and the impact on that was also a service project, because at each fishing derby, we have a kiddie pond that we have floating nets that we stock with trout, and they're hungrier than hungry by the time the derby starts. And kids can come down to the dock and put a fishing line in the kiddie pond and catch their first fish. And we partner, see, again, developing community partnerships or working with your community. We partner with the senior anglers of Escondido. So we had to analyze our impact. So one of the things with, club coaches can do is use this particular tool. You can look at things like the cost or the impact of the project. So are you getting, for the time that they're putting into a project, are they getting enough impact? And the answer, what we've done in the last 20 years, the answer is yes. And now it also allowed us to build that playground out at the lake, where the old dilapidated playground was there. And so Kiwanis is known for that. The fishermen that come to the tournament know that we put that playground in. So this is a great tool to use for clubs, again, to look at themselves. And this may be something that a club board could use, and to do some strategic thinking about what they're doing. Oh, but we've done that since 1954, Dave. Okay, that's fine. But, is it still having the impact that it did in 1954? Next slide. So this kind of just talks about what I alluded to with doing collaboration or partnership like we do with the senior anglers, is as we're moving out of pandemic, it's really crucial for our clubs to reach out to other clubs in the division, first off, or the district, but other community organizations to collaborate, because we've all gone through this together, and we can look for opportunities for, to help our communities and serve. And that's the questions that our clubs need to be asking. Next slide. So I alluded to this already in talking about developing community partnerships. A lot of times we focus so much on the fact that we want a dues paying member, and that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong when I say that. But how cool is it that we have this partnership with the senior anglers, and they bring out, I don't know, a dozen guys and gals from their club to help us at each derby. Now we feed them, so they eat well while they're at the derby, but they have become a wonderful community partner. And we've had some of our members join their club, and I think we had one of their members join one of our Kiwanis club. But a couple times a year, we're doing projects with them, and they're a great partner. Those are the kind of relationships that clubs need to look at. Boys and girls clubs, the Y. There's all kinds of other community-based groups, that whether they be, at a faith-based organization, or, well, one of our community partnerships in our club too is our partnership with Interfaith Community Services. And what that is it's basically a soup kitchen, a homeless shelter, counseling for people, to get people a hand up and get them off the street. And so a couple guys and I from our club, we cook every Friday morning at 5 in the morning, and we make breakfast burritos on Fridays and hand them out for breakfast. It's a great partnership with Interfaith. And again, we have people that have joined because of Interfaith. I'm a corporate member, but that's another good community partner. Every community has groups like Interfaith here in Escondido. So be thinking, those are the things that our clubs need to be thinking is, who could we partner with and have more hands of service? Next slide. Okay. After we do all those other things, in fact, you do not want to do this tool with a club unless they really feel that they are the best show in town. And this has had various names over the years. You know, in our district, past Governor Bob Erickson was big with special guest days, and they had an 8-step plan, etc. This is very similar. It's been reworked. I like the title of it because it's hosting an open house. It's very welcoming, as opposed to a, let's have a membership roundup, and I think I'm going to get roped or something, and get along, little doggies, or whatever. So the hosting an open house is a great tool when we have a club that's healthy. And it's one of the ones towards the end of using these tools that clubs can use. And it's a multi-step process, again, to figure out who you want to invite, then send out the invitations, send out the letters. And there's a lot of materials that are available as far as canned letters and things to send out to people in the community. So, it's a great way that a club can let people know what the club does. Past President Steve Siemens, one of the things they did with his home club was they had all the different committees speak at their open house, so that maybe somebody who was attending that day would identify with the program that they did. Who was I talking to just the other day, and they said that the reason they joined it's a guy that's going to be president of our club next year, was this morning. Mike Montanari said that he joined Kiwanis because somebody invited him, but while he was there at the meeting, they had a presentation from Special Olympics, and he goes, "Is this what Kiwanis does?" And the gentleman that brought him said, "Yeah," and he says, "I need an application." And so, these are some of the things that, when we're looking at an open house, if you give some clubs some opportunity. Okay, next slide, Patty. Because here's the bottom line. If we don't ask, talented community members, and there's a lot of them in our community, there's a lot of people that love our local communities. They're gonna work together, and they're gonna enjoy life, and they're gonna create momentum, but with somebody else. And a couple years ago, and many of you in this that are in attendance tonight, you guys, like we do in Cal Neva, we get new member leads. I get a half a dozen a week to Cal Neva. In fact, I just sent out 6 that I got since January 1st. Now thank you, the Rose Parade, for that, probably. But it's interesting. We also get, with the lead later on, KI sends us a follow-up, because they send out a ping to the person and said, "Hey, did anybody call you?" And if they come back and they say, "No, nobody called me," then we get a second reminder, right? And maybe you've seen some of those. Well, it's funny, a couple years ago, the person responded, "No, nobody ever contacted me, so I joined Lions." And that's a shame that, here we passed out a gold lead to our clubs, and nobody went and called them. So if we don't ask people, talented people are going to go to some organization that's not Kiwanis. Patty, next slide. But let's look at the positive side. I don't want to end on, or, you know, we're not ending, but I mean, I don't want to be on a downer here, but if we invest in our community, we can look for new members. The key, I think, that many of our clubs are finding right now is if we invite people to service projects, that's one of the best ways that we can get new members. And we're also going to get more service accomplished. Next slide.
I want to say also that there are a lot of ways to share ideas with your members that can help jog memories to bring in prospects. If you just ask someone, usually their first answer is, I don't know anybody else, I'm retired, whatever. But when you, there's a list, it's in the membership guide. You could find it, I'm sure, on Kiwanis.org, and it talks about the different professions. So you can see lawyer. Oh, why didn't I think of my lawyer? He's a great guy. She's a great gal. And you can help your members think about people to invite. And it
Yeah,
goes
that
back to
tool exists that's called a prospect prompter. And
right.
the other thing that we can do when we're coaching these clubs is, okay, you know, maybe you are, you know, like me, you're kind of a personality, you know, you're going to be aggressive and you'll speak out or whatever. Well, maybe somebody who's a B or a C can give me a name of one of their friends, and you have one of those people that's a good talker or a closer, talk to them to invite them. The other way is you can get very creative with the invitation letters that can go out. And one of the things I saw, that one of the first sentences in it was significant, and that is, you have been nominated for membership in the Kiwanis Club of XYZ town. Now, if you get a letter in the mail and that's the first sentence, that's pretty cool. At least you might read on and you might look into it. So again, that's just a little tidbit that we've used over the years when we've sent out invitations. You've been nominated for membership. Next slide.
Just don't want to have our members be afraid to suggest possible members or invite them.
That's right. Okay. We're kind of at the wrap up here, but the KI website is significant, and including COVID-19 resources. And if you haven't seen these, I mean, you know, advice for video calls and guidelines for insurance coverages and changes, and, you know, steps to having a virtual fundraiser. Last year, during all this, our district foundation, we normally have a fundraiser at our 2 mid-years. Well, we didn't have mid-years last year, well, except online, excuse me. So we had an online fundraiser, and we raised the most money we've ever raised at one of these events, and it was very successful. So it can be done. And, you know, this year I think we're considering it being a hybrid, excuse me. So those, you know, drive people to the clubs you're working with and your own club to the Kiwanis website, because there are some great resources there. Next slide. And here's that landing page I mentioned. And so when you click up in the upper right hand corner, you can see there in the small letters next to English, member resources. When you click that, this is the opening page, and we didn't get the whole picture, but what I wanted was right at the top, virtual club resources, and those are still there. Then right below it, membership and education. This is where you're going to find the ACE tools that I just talked about, and that page earlier that shows, you know, if my club is at this problem, which tools should I use? Because here's the thing, if the club will break it down and do one of the tools that we've shown, they're going to be better than they were yesterday. And then maybe they do a second one and they continue to get even better. And so that's what's really cool about using the ACE tools with a club. And, you know, like Patty said, get somebody else to facilitate it that's not a club member, because they get tired of hearing the same old, you know, people speaking. Next slide.
Speaking of hearing other people talk, one thing, Dave, I can be in any meeting anywhere and I'll text him and I'll say, how do I get to whatever form it is that people are looking for? And he's got it for me there before, I take in my next breath practically, not always, but a secret I learned recently is you can find most of these tools by just Googling. So if you have a hard time navigating this page or anything else, if you Google the tool you're thinking about, maybe even just membership tools for Kiwanis or reviewing your community via Kiwanis, they might pop up right there in your Google search. So that's just
That's
another
true.
little idea for you.
And we should remind them, Patty, that, Peter's Club Excellence Committee, one of our challenges that he gave us is that we're resource people. And so anytime I do a presentation anywhere, and at the end we have Patty's email and my email, and I'm not necessarily sitting at my computer waiting for your email or your phone call, but I'll get back to you. And
You do have a
Patty's
job.
the same way.
Yeah, me
And
too.
and there's a lot of Patty's and Daves in our organization. I'm sure you have some of Patty's and Daves in the Southwest District also. Okay, Patty, next slide.
Okay, so we promised that we would leave some time for questions. And the reason this says what it says is if there aren't any questions, we have more slides to share about then and now, how things look. And we also mentioned here certified club coaches. So, do we have any questions? I'll bring my gallery back and see if I can see anybody. Raise your hand. Erica, what's your question?
I had two questions. So, Dave, is there a way that you can send out the signs that you use for your fishing derby?
The signs.
You said you put signs up or something.
Oh, we just went to a local banner company, and I might have pictures of them, but yeah.
Were they just with the logo, or was there any wording on it?
Well, I mean, it said Kiwanis Fishing Derby, December 3rd through 5th or whatever. And we have a couple places in the city of Escondido where you can register to hang a banner for an event. And so we had banners up before, across a couple streets. So there's opportunities, I think, within cities sometimes that, a club can do some promotion, but you just have to look. I mean, you might be driving through your local city and see this banner across the road. You should look into that because, it may be something that, they change from time to time and let organizations fly the banner for a period of time.
Erica, I want to say that our club made a simple, it's like an A-frame that a realtor might have, but it's not metal. It's just some kind of a flexible board in there. And ours says Kiwanians at work. And it's just one of those those orange, yellow triangular signs just to get people's attention. So we take it to all of our events, Kiwanians at work.
And if you Google A-frame signs, I'm sure you're going to get, I mean, my church uses them, and like I said, our club has it. It's a plastic thing that folds and you can put it in your trunk, and move it around, and you can put different things. Like I said, we had the club meeting information in it today because we were meeting, but when we were at the fishing derby, we had our menu in there for what we were cooking. But so we used it, you can slide different signs in and out of them.
Okay. And I have one more question.
Yeah.
You said inviting people to service projects. Are those people who aren't Kiwanians? And how does that work as far as like liability insurance with Kiwanis? Because I was told by Highland we couldn't do that.
I don't know about that. I think if they're working your service project, they're covered, but maybe check again. But what we do still is we do the waiver form. There's a COVID-19 waiver form. And I just looked that information up and it's still in force. We had 400 people come to our Taste of Concord. We had 3 people sitting there, wouldn't give them their ticket until they signed the waiver form. we had a couple of people say words, but everybody signed it. But I think they're covered, but I'm not the insurance guru. Check with your district's risk manager. Is
And
that person on here? Greg, weren't you a risk manager? Greg Landers, or did you tune out?
Yeah, because I was told if they're attending the event, they don't need to, but if they're participating and working, they have to. And
Have
that
to
was from
what?
Highland. They
to
have to
what?
be a part of one of our service clubs or SLP.
It's my understanding, and I agree with Patty, and you know, is that our Kiwanis insurance covers anybody who is actively working on a service project with our clubs.
Yeah, we have a major project here in Santa Fe where we usually pull in 600 volunteers, and they
Mhm.
are all covered under the Kiwanis insurance.
There you go. There you go.
And you
I
got
think we
that
need to-
reassurance from
From Highland?
I think
who?
we need to ask Highland how you're asking the question
Right.
and get you some clarification.
Okay, because I can forward you the email they sent me, so you can see the question I asked.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. Erica, before we move on, if we answered your question, I hope we did. I
Mhm.
see there's another question in the chat and I promised we would answer them. Can the district provide a district membership team for the relay races at U of A, April 2nd? Now, who were you talking to, Larry? We have 800 middle schoolers from Southern Arizona come. We use 100 volunteers to run the races. I believe this has been a missed opportunity.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. I'm a new club president, and our club has sponsored these relay races for almost 20 years. But the emphasis has always been on running this relay race for all these middle schools in Southern Arizona. And there hasn't been a real strong emphasis on recruiting or even fundraising at the relay races themselves. And yet we've got 800 kids from schools all over Arizona, Southern Arizona, showing up. And it's like, what an opportunity to reach out and say, and tell the Kiwanis story fully and create some clubs as a result of this also. But that's something that we can't be reaching out to every county in Southern Arizona. Pima County keeps us busy enough as it is. So if clubs put together a Southern Arizona membership team to be there and tell that story to the schools that are showing up from all over Southern Arizona, we might be able to create some new clubs and perhaps even pick up a few new members for the various clubs around Southern Arizona.
So that's kind of a district question, if you can get help from the district. But I will tell you, if you can get a contact from each one of those schools and begin to reach out one at a time, that might be the smaller piece to bite off, one school at a time where you have a club. That's my perspective from a membership. You've got the audience there. It would be great to do something.
Well, there's a number of things involved here, and I'm kind of a new member of the club, first time president for this club, and so it's kind of that coming in with too many new ideas too fast. But at the same time, if I don't do something to leverage on this, and our club is, like many clubs, shrunk, and we're kind of at a critical point now. So we've got to reinvigorate ourselves, and at the same time capitalize on an opportunity better than we have.
Yeah, you know, Larry, my comment would be that our clubs should be encouraged at every service project and at any fundraiser to make sure that they have some sort of membership materials there because somebody's going to ask. Let me give you an example that just happened this last weekend. After the Rose Float, parade is over, all the floats are sent. They sit in a park in Pasadena. And we actually, our Kiwanis district, our membership team is there by the Kiwanis float, selling Kiwanis float memorabilia, because some people like that, but explaining Kiwanis to the people that come up. And we've gotten some good leads. We've done that now for 2 years. And that was just an opportunity that somebody saw, and some of the local Kiwanians from the membership team are there. And that it's been very effective to explain what Kiwanis is.
Okay.
Does anyone from the district there have anything they want to? Hi, Don, go ahead.
Well, Larry, what I'll do, let me call you this week and talk to you about that, because I know I wouldn't mind being there, but I got the Key Club convention because I'm on the admin team on 1 through 3 April, but we should be able to put a team together, because I know what Peter and Art did. They explained it to us online. So that's a good idea, Larry. So let me talk to you about that.
I deeply appreciate that.
That's
Okay.
sweet. Cool.
Okay, any other questions? Well, we have some other little slides we want to share.
But it's just,
Am
these
I
are some
missing
fun things, right, Patty? I mean, this is a fun
Yeah,
way
the
to end.
trivia.
Yeah.
Greg is sending me a link. I'm backing up here on the insurance question. And I don't know why I can't open his links, but there's a pamphlet that lists who is covered. So I imagine if you just Google who is covered under insurance, this link will come up. So I'm just,
So
Greg,
Yeah,
did you
Patty.
want to say anything about that link?
Yeah, Patty, it's the Kiwanis Insurance Resource Guide 2019-2020.
oh,
And on page 3, it says who is covered. And a little bit, about 55% of the page down, it says non-member volunteer workers. So to Erica's question, I do believe that any non-member volunteers who are working on a Kiwanis service project are covered under our general liability policy.
They still
you
need
go.
that waiver though for COVID.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a good question here in the chat. What is
Yes.
club coaching? So there's a committee. Actually, we've been working on a certified coaching program for a couple of years. Last year's membership committee spent a lot of time putting together a club coaching PowerPoint. And the recommendation from the powers to be in Kiwanis International is we want coaches who have been trained coaching our clubs. We are looking for people who are open-minded, people who understand that just because our club does it one way doesn't mean your club needs to do that. We've had a problem sometimes opening young clubs with coaches or people who are trying to help them open the club saying, well, you have to start with a prayer. You have to start with a salute to the flag, and then you have to sing. Is there anyone here who thinks they have to do that to have a good club? I see dead silence, no hands.
Nope.
So, I mean, when we think about it, we don't have to do that. And we'll never get some people to join if we insist on some of the traditions that we've always done. And so we're looking for coaches that are open-minded. And then we have this committee on club excellence that Peter put together, President Peter put together this year. And all those folks are certified to do club coaching training. And if your district wants to put some people together, or, your membership person, John, if you want to put some people together that you want trained in this, just let us know and we'll help you get a trainer to come certify them. And then the next step would be to talk about how the certified coaches work with clubs that need coaching, and how do we find out
And Patty, you know what, to answer Nancy's question, the way I read it is she's asking really, what is the process? And we basically, a club can ask for a club coach. Think about anything, an Olympian, the Olympics are coming up, right? And here are these great athletes, and each one of them has a coach, and that's somebody that helps them excel. And that's really
Yeah.
what we have. We have a team of people that have been trained as club coaches, and
Yes,
they can
I'm
go
gonna
in and
mention
help.
that as soon as they. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Dave, thank you. We
And-
had promised that would be 1 hour, so we have about 4 minutes. If there's any more questions. Don, did you have a question or
Yeah,
comment?
just for those online, two things. One, we're gonna have a club coaching seminar on 18 January. So if you're interested, reach
There you
out to
go.
me so I can include you in the training. And then two, we're gonna have a mid-year convention on the 18th of February at Flagstaff. So Ken sent out the information to all the clubs today, so those lieutenant governors on, please inform your club members, and there'll be more emails to follow on that, but it's going to be a one-day event. And if you go, the only issue is, if you're going to stay up there overnight, you need to get a hotel reservation by 18 January. Okay, that's all I had to say, Patty.
No, thank you for throwing that out there. It wasn't my place to do that, but I'm glad you are going to have some coaches train. And then we'll have a list of, we keep a list of the certified club coaches. So when your clubs need a coach, we try to match the personality and the location. And that also can be done on Zoom.
Yep.
Well, we have about 1 minute yet, and I know Tequila Tuesdays are always 1 hour. I didn't even see anybody drinking any tequila, by the way.
I got mine right here, Patty, but I'm not a big drinker, but I still got tequila in there.
Oh, wow. I have my water. I'm not real good. I haven't had dinner yet. Okay, I hope that we answered most all your questions. And Dave and I are available if you want to call us or ask us any questions.
Patty, why don't you go to that last slide and they can get our,
Okay, let's see how long
information.
it takes me to get
And-
there.
here's the thing, this then and now, maybe many of you may have gotten these cards from Kiwanis International, and it's another fun thing that basically it says, here's what happened in the past, but really then here's what the reality of now. Like one of them is, we can't meet anymore. Well, no, why not? We can meet in a virtual world. We can meet in a hybrid world. And so these are just some fun things at the end that, if that you can even go through your own club and say, hey, are we, it goes back to that slide. Are you a quick club or are you a dead club? And so here, well, okay, that's fine. This is here, show them this slide. This is really why we do what we do. And thank you guys for being here. So here's our contact info. And we will send this PowerPoint over to you all. And if you need any kind of resources, you know how to get a hold of us.
And I